I'm here because I want to be versus I'm here because I have to be there. I knew there
Wow.
was enough cash flow with the 20 units that I would be okay if I completely lost my job. And it was just a
Right.
totally different mindset shift. And you learn to even just appreciate your job more that way. So that
Yeah.
I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. And it was just a totally different mindset.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host, Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we could have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to help guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life through real estate investing. Now sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready for this episode
What is
of
up,
the
Pathfinders,
On
and
Purpose
welcome
Investor.
to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and I am super excited for today's episode. We are welcoming in a top-level, high, efficient, amazing entrepreneur and real estate investor out of north parts of the United States. He's way up there. He's almost a Canadian from the UP, Mr. Dan Shank. Dan Shank, thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast.
Glad to be here, Eric. How's it going?
Oh, it's great. It's always a good day when I get to talk to my buddy Dan, and I am super pumped that our listeners get to hear your story today, because when I first met you probably 4 years ago or so, I was like, my goodness, this guy has how many units? This guy does what? He's a rocket scientist? What? You blew my mind. You blew my wife's mind. We were just amazed to hear about your success, about your story, about your journey. I don't want to break all of the news to everyone, but you're a new dad. You're fairly newlywed. I mean, y'all are an amazing couple. We love you guys, and we're just super pumped to have you on the show today. So before anything else, let's get started with some basics here, Dan. Want to just dive right on into our introduction. Where do you invest?
My investments mainly are on the border of Northeast Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's pretty cold up here. I'm from Ohio originally, and it's a little bit tricky learning the different state laws, but that's where I'm at. I'm mainly doing single and small multifamily rentals.
Yeah.
I've branched out some more into some furnished places, renting those to insured people, insurance claim people, or contractors. I also got into investing a lot with my Roth 401k, and that's the main thing I've been doing the last several years, was buying rentals in my self-directed Roth 401k. I've also done some different things as far as some partnering on some storage units, some small group syndications, some hard money lending, stuff like that.
Right on, man. So a lot of our listeners out there say that there's a lot of value in when people say, oh, I have so many units, X amount of units. But anyone knows that if you go to a Gary Johnston seminar, he's like, well, what's good with having 100 units if your 100 units don't cash flow? But you're a smart investor. You're a wise investor. And I know your units cash flow. Just for our people that like to hear numbers, around about, you don't have to be exact. How many units are you at now with your rentals, not your storage units and all that?
Right. I believe I'm at about 70, 75, something like that. I'm not sure the exact number.
And that's hyper impressive, not just for the number, but for how many years you've been doing this. How many years have you been a real estate investor?
I bought my first rental house in January, or I was technically February of 2015. So I guess that's almost 8 years now.
Yeah, right at 8 years. So, I mean, if you did a time-weighted average on that, you're almost at 10 a year. That's nothing small. It's nothing to, as we say here in the South, that you wouldn't shake a stick at that. I don't know if you're familiar with those Southern cliche sayings or not, but it's very impressive. And that's why I wanted you on the show today, was because we have aspiring investors on our show that listen, and we have seasoned investors on our show that just like to stay motivated and stay moving, keeping that forward trajectory. And they're really going to love hearing your story. I want to just touch on slightly about how you invest with your Roth 401k. Is this money that you had invested into your Roth prior to becoming a real estate investor?
Yeah, I used to work for Enstrom Helicopter, and I really enjoyed that job. And this is something I had planned for years and years. And then eventually I was able to roll that money over and start investing it into real estate instead of just stocks. So it's something that took some planning, and I had planned on doing it for a little while.
Oh, that's great. So you had a traditional, retirement account with your job as a rocket science. I call it a rocket scientist. I know that you're aviation or helicopters, and you were
Yep.
doing work with helicopters, and you started building up your retirement account there. Is that right?
Yep.
And you said, I want to build up enough to where I can go buy rental properties. Is that accurate?
That wasn't the original goal, but after a few years and once I started learning about real estate, I realized, okay, eventually you have to switch jobs or to be able to roll that account over, or quit your job to be able to roll that account over.
Gotcha. Now, I'm not sure. I know we were in a mastermind together at one point, and you were still kind of employed, but also not employed. Was your Roth already converted at that point?
I don't think it was converted yet. No.
Okay.
It's
So,
about the time frame, but it wasn't done yet.
gotcha. Okay, right on. For our listeners out there that, let's say they've been working in their job for 10, 15 years, 10, 15 years in any job, and if you've been investing into your retirement account, no matter what it's called, or, in the Army, this TSP, or, traditional jobs out there for civilians, it's usually a 401k of some type. So how do they do that conversion? I'm not going to ask you to spell it out, but where can they figure that out?
There's a lot of good resources. Honestly, for 401k stuff, there's not as many as other aspects of real estate. The best book I read was The Solo 401k, and that's by Dykes Boddiford, Dorsey Boddiford, and John Heyer. It's a tough read, but once you get through it, you're going to know the stuff so well, and they have more resources and classes to learn from them for sure. It's a really tough read. I mean, it was one page at a time. It's
Right.
like reading the tax code, because those guys know it and they want to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's easier than reading the tax code, but I didn't feel like it by much. But
Well, just a
a
very
lot of
unique.
good information. But
Right.
that was my Bible to make sure I had a good idea of how to do this the right way, the legal way, and follow the rules.
Yeah. And that's so important in the real estate investing world, whether you're buying rentals or you're a lender or whether you run a syndication or any of that. It's so important that you understand what you're doing, and
Mhm.
not just exactly that you know what you're doing, but you're doing it by the book, and that, Uncle Sam is getting theirs as they see fit, because it's really important that you understand it going into it. You can't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to roll my retirement account over and I'm going to go buy up some rentals, and that is what it is. You can't just do that, because there's a lot of little niche things that have to happen. You got to put in a certain type of bank account, or you got to have someone to be an intermediary of it, or you got to have some type of little thing, documentation that makes it legal. So all of our listeners out there, I'm speaking for myself. I am a layman when it comes to anything legal, tax, or when it comes to anything. I'm just a guy off the street that owns some rental properties. And Dan, I think I might speak for you as well. We are not professionals when it comes to this. These are just resources that we have figured out for ourselves and that we use for ourselves. And we have trusted people that we help advise us, and whether that's ourselves or someone else.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Dan. So when you first got started back in 2015, you said you had an idea that you might want to invest in real estate. Can you explain a little bit about what was your motivation? What got you going?
I first started working. We were working a lot of hours. I enjoyed the work. It was still a lot of hours. I was making decent money. I knew I didn't necessarily want to work a lot of hours forever. I also wanted to make sure I invested that money. I wanted to make that money work for me. I didn't have any real idea of what that path would be when I first started. Actually, when I really started investing my money, some people at work told me about oil stocks, and I picked the perfect time to not buy oil stocks. I should not have so lost money on that. Everything looked great. The stocks I bought had been paying great dividends for 10 years. Everything looked perfect. But then, of course, the time I decided to invest in that was the time that things went down as far as oil prices. So that was fun. And a buddy of mine at work, Devin, he actually got me interested in real estate. I knew nothing about real estate. It hadn't even popped into my mind I should buy real estate. He told me, he said, he knew I was trying to make money with the oil stocks and just investing in stocks in general, because that's what you learn. That's what you hear about a lot, is investing in stocks, and an easy thing to do. But he told me to read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And over Christmas of 2014, I read that book in 2 days and I was hooked at that point. And then I started, that book was wonderful, and got me really hooked and going. And then I started listening to Bigger Pockets podcast. And within a month of reading that book, I went and looked at a house. It was January and it's cold and there's lots of snow on the ground and not a lot of action. But at the time, there were still foreclosures out there. And I don't even know if I really knew it was a foreclosure or what a foreclosure was at the time. But I went and I looked at that house. I actually first talked to somebody at work so they said, hey, Cindy, she invests in real estate. She has some rentals in the area. I didn't know her that well. I went and talked to her ahead of time, and she agreed to look at the house with me. And the first thing she said is, when I pulled up, I thought this was the wrong house. She said, this is a good house for the price. So we went through it, and she said, you need to buy this house. This is a really good deal. So I went back to Devin and I said, Devin, do you want to buy this house with me and invest with me? And he said, nope, not yet. And at the time, it was a $15,000 house. The house has done wonderful for me, and I still have it. It's paid for itself several times over by now. So that was a really good deal. So I looked, and she said, my new mentor, I probably didn't even know what a mentor was really at the time, but she said, yeah, put an offer in this house. Devin didn't want in on it. So I bought it myself and closed on it a month later. And I remember, because it was the coldest day of the year, it was like -20 out. I think it was about February 20th. At that time, I was a renter as well. So the goal was, I rent this house out was the plan. My backup plan is I just live in it. So my parents came up from Ohio. They're like, oh, Dan's buying a house, or baby's buying a house. So whatever. So
let's get a U-Haul lined up and move our baby into his new house. Little did they know what kind of house you were buying, right?
Right. They weren't too thrilled about it. Especially my mom was kind of leery about it. And she's like, just move in it, just live in it. But luckily they helped me fix it up, and I spent months working on fixing it up after work each day and got it rented out. My first renter I met in line at Walmart returning curtains that my mom had bought that were not the right size or whatever it was. So that was really funny. Just started chatting him up in line. He was there to work at the shipyard, and he didn't have a place to live, so I rented it to him.
Wow, it's one of those stories. It's like, it's kind of like the stars aligned.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
You're interested in investing in something, and then someone says, hey, what about real estate? Go read this book. And then you read the book and you're hyper motivated. And then you come back and said, oh, talk to Cindy. She does real estate. And she's like, hey, go look at this house. And you go look at it. And then you go work on it. You learn about sweat equity, and you learn, while you're doing that on your first couple of houses, you probably learn about all the parts and the mechanicals of a house. And you're like, oh, I didn't know to even look for this, but now I know. Or I didn't really know how this thing worked, but now I know. And then you're returning something that's bad at Walmart, and you meet your first tenant. It's a unique story that I hope every one of our listeners gets to tell their version of it one day. I didn't know some of those details about your beginnings, and I think it's an amazing thing. I think it's a beautiful story. Honestly, there's a lot of beauty to your story.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. I mean, another part of it was, when I bought it, we were working a lot of hours, but then the company slowed down, and company-wide, we got cut back to 32 hours a week. So I went from working 55 hours a week to 32 hours a week. So I had a lot more free time to just work on that house, painting, fixing random things, just learning, listening to podcasts as I worked on the house. So the timing was perfect there. And also getting the mindset going of, it's kind of good to have a backup plan, because even if you think things are going well at work, we got pulled back. So the income dropped significantly. So it was at least have something to do and something hopefully profitable to do.
Absolutely. No one's going to have a contingency plan for your life other than you.
Right.
Your boss can just say, hey, we're in excess in this position, whether you're a firefighter, a teacher, a nurse, or what have you, working in the shipyard. They can say any given day, so-and-so is not cutting the mustard. Can or canner, we'll find someone else. And usually the majority of the time, no matter how important you were to that business, they'll have you replaced by the next workday. Even if it's over a weekend, usually they got someone lined up or can find someone. So that's such a really big thing that you said there, is that you figured out and realized through that process, oh, they reduced my hours. I'm working on this thing that's going to start giving me cash flow. Wow, if I have enough of them, I could replace all of my income from my job, and I'm my own boss. I am my contingency plan. I don't have to worry about some company to be successful for me to have a roof over my head and for me to take care of me. I am my best contingency plan. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it really helps to deliver the message of what we're trying to teach here at On Purpose Investor about hyper intentionality and driving your mission and your focus towards your goals, and helping you figure out, is that goal to be your own boss? Is that goal to have time and financial freedom? Is it the ability to do whatever, whenever, however, with no restraints?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if I tangented or soapboxed a little bit there, but I really love what you said, and it motivated me, and I wanted to share that. You ready to move on to number 2, Dan?
Oh, yeah. Just one more point, like what you were saying in the plan. And I still remember to this day, I think it was my third year investing. I bought 16 units, and that was a big project. But going from 4 to 20 units was a huge jump. And I remember that day going into work with a totally different mindset of, I'm here because I want to be versus I'm here because I have to be there. I knew there was enough cash flow with the 20 units that I would be okay if I completely lost my job. And it was just a totally different mindset shift. And you learn to even just appreciate your job more that way. So that I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. And it was just a totally different mindset.
And that's a good feeling to have. That's a good feeling of safety and security for yourself, and then one day your family or your future family, right? So let me get this straight. In 3 years, you had built up enough passive income that you could leave your job.
Yes.
That's a testimony in itself to, of your tenacity to just keep moving forward and to just, accept all of the suck that you had to embrace of fixing up your own properties and working after work. And those are certain things that not the majority of people are willing to do. That sweat equity, that just hustle mentality. It's something that you can learn to do, but it's most often you're born with it. It's just, when is it gonna, break out? When is it gonna expose itself? And I think when that challenge arose for you, you showed up. You were ready to do it.
And just one day at a time.
Yeah. And opportunity is nothing. Opportunity is worth nothing if you do nothing with it.
Right. Yep.
So amen to that, man. So number 2, when you first got started, I know you said that you had these ideas of investing in something, and then real estate kind of made its way to you, and then boom, a light bulb was like, this is it. This is what I'm investing in. It's not these failed oil stocks. I'm not losing no more money on Exxon. I'm going to move into something different. But when you first got started, did you have a very detailed roadmap of, I want to have this many units that cash flow this much so I can leave my job by this time so I can do this? Did you have a detailed roadmap?
Not at all. It was really just a one day at a time, just putting one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. learning as much as I can along the way and just keep moving forward. Eventually, I had broad goals like 20 units, 30 units, 40 units, whatever, over time. But the main goal was just keep moving in the right direction.
Right. So when you first got started, do you think if before you bought that first rental property, if you had studied and prepared and said, okay, I know all the bits and pieces to it, and here's how many rental properties I want to own the first year, here's how many I want to own the second year, do you feel like you would have reached your dreams, your dream life any faster? Or do you think it might have helped you to buy the right properties? Tiffany calls it her buy box. Whenever we see a property come across, we're like, is that in our buy box? I don't know. Is it a 422? Does it really fit in our buy box? Is it in a 30-mile radius of where we live? We don't know, because we wouldn't have known it had we not detailed a buy box, right? So do you think a detailed roadmap would have helped you to stay on track, to be on track, to have a track?
Yeah, it absolutely would have helped me. My main thing when I got started was just asking the mentors, though. I mean, I didn't have a roadmap, but at least I had the mentors to say every single time, is this a good deal? Is this a good deal? And that kept me at least heading in the right direction. Not a true roadmap, but at least people that knew what they were talking about, that kind of kept me in a buy box, so to speak. Yeah. So that really helped at least.
Yeah, you're very grateful to have had mentors like that. There's a lot of folks out there trying to just, Wild West it and go out and do what they can without any resources. They listen to Bigger Pockets. They listen to the On Purpose Investor podcast. They listen to any podcast out there on real estate. They're like, wow, that's such a great idea. I really want to do this. I really want to change my life. I want to change the future for me and my family. I'm just going to go do it. But if they had someone in front of them pointing them and saying, stay away from pre-19 blah, blah, blah because of this type of building thing, or stay away from this type of multi-family because once you cross over X, this happens, and you really don't want to be in that. Instead, do this. So, mentors are priceless when you can build a relationship with one. I will say this just as a disclaimer. It's going to be hard for anyone to find a mentor that is going to be really willing to help them if you have no interest in helping yourself.
Absolutely. Yep.
You're going to have to dig into books. You're going to have to go look at houses. You do not expect your mentor to be your wholesaler. Don't expect your mentor to be the absolute end-all be-all decision maker. You've got to have knowledge. You've got to have willpower. You've got to have the go-to, the gumption to get off your butt and do something. So don't just show up to a real estate meetup and say, hey, Dan, my name's Eric. Will you be my mentor? Look at this. Is this a good deal? Is this a good deal? Is this a good deal? No, it's got to be symbiotic. You got to help them. They can help you. It's got to be symbiotic. You got to help each other in some way.
Absolutely. They want to see you taking action. Most of my mentors I did not know. It wasn't like I was surrounded by a bunch of real estate mentors or anything. I met them through the landlord association, the local real estate associations, and I didn't know them at all. But they saw me taking action and actually making moves, which made them want to help me more. If you don't take action, if you don't put in offers, they're not going to be wanting to keep helping you. They're not going to go look at 20 houses with you if you're not even buying anything or putting in offers.
Right. Because what you might fail to realize is that mentor that you're striving to have to lead you probably has had dozens of people just like you approach them and say, hey, will you help me? And then they fizzle off. They suck up they suck up some of their education. They suck up some of their energy, and then they just disappear. In today's culture, they say they ghost them. They got ghosted. And it really jades really good investors from helping other people. So I will say this, if you're interested in finding a mentor, and a mentor can be anyone that is one step ahead of you. Your mentor can be the guy at the real estate meetup that also doesn't have any houses, but he's been to a few seminars, or he has been door knocking, or he knows the call list for tax sales. he could be your mentor. Anyone that's just one small step ahead of you can be your mentor. So don't feel like it's got to be some guru that's got 1 billion houses and very hyper successful with a yacht and the babes. That's not what mentors are. Mentors are someone that's willing to help you, that is just one step ahead of you and willing to reach back their hand and say, hey, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. And they'll help you meet more of the right people. Right. The banker, the real estate agent, the contractors, those other guys that'll help you and really grow your network and expand out.
Yeah. Bridges build bridges. And that's important to understand is that, when you start that spider web, it's just only going to keep getting bigger unless you do something to damage that relationship, and then it all comes crashing down. So, stay honest, stay full of integrity, have a moral compass that you travel through and by. But let's move on to our next question, Dan. Has your roadmap shifted at all from the beginning? In the beginning, you were trying to build cash flow to replace your income, and you just wanted to invest in something. And then, by year 3, you had enough that you could leave your job. Did your goals shift at all, along the way? And what did they shift from, and what did they shift to?
Yeah, it's definitely shifted an awful lot. I mean, in the beginning, it was work as hard as I can, keep buying. And then eventually I got to a point where it's like, okay, I really have enough. I don't have to buy any more. I will if the opportunity and the timing works out. So it was nice not having to buy anything. I don't need to buy any more rentals. I will if something comes up and I have the time for it, but trying to be cautious and protective of my time so I can spend more time with our young daughter and my wife and our animals and spend a lot more time with them, focusing more on building a business and not working in my business, just working on my business. I still work probably too much in my business, but I will keep improving that over time.
Yeah, and we've been a part of very similar, masterminds or different educators and mentors along the way. And there is a group of folks that are like, listen, stop working in your business and hire someone else to do it. And then there's the other side of people that we also spend time with that say, listen, only you are going to run your business the way you want to run it. And if you like it and if you enjoy it, by all means, just keep doing it. I say, if you understand where you're headed in your life and what your dream life looks like if you can clearly say, my dream life looks like this, and you say, I wake up, before the kids and I have a cup of coffee with my spouse and, we do all this stuff, and you have a block in your dream day that says, I work in my business because I'm energized by it. And if that block is there in your dream day as part of your dream life, then that tells you really are enjoying it and you have the freedom to go. You will have that freedom to go, but you enjoy it. So keep doing it. I think that's something to point out, because there are a lot of people out there saying, just leave your job. And if your job becomes your business and that mindset is still a part of who you are, you're going to think, I got to leave my job. Okay, I'm going to hire all these people to do it. And then, you're left, just sitting on the beach by yourself, drinking a Corona, and you're like, wow, it's cool, but I'm not fulfilled. You said a little bit about your animals. I wanted to take a bit to just take a little break from the script and talk about your beautiful second daughter, Emma. Can you describe a little bit to our audience, your daughter, Emma?
Well, she's about 60 pounds. She's pink. She has hair in the winter and a little tail and goes oink oink. So yeah, we have about a mini pig. So
I wouldn't call her that mini.
Mini compared to other pigs, I guess.
Other mini pigs. We went up there and visited Dan and his family 2 summers ago, and our dog had a chance to meet Emma, and they had a really great time playing in the pen with the goats. And just wanted to take that little bit of time to say, Dan has a pig living on the coast of Lake Michigan, and it is amazing.
Yeah, and they grow hair if it gets cold enough. So
Oh, goodness. So moving on back to the script, back on track here. What was your mindset when you first got started, and how has it evolved? And just to kind of guide your thinking here, we're going to talk a little bit about scarcity versus abundance. And to give our listeners just a little idea about what is scarcity versus abundance, I would say to have a scarce mindset, you're really, you have your hands here and you're afraid to
Mhm.
let open. You're afraid to give money. You're afraid to give your time. You're afraid to give advice. That is being very scarce. And then being abundant is the exact opposite. It is, if I give love, I'll receive love. If I give money, I'll receive money. If I give, I will receive. Not that you expect reception, but it's that mindset of if my arms are open, I'm giving and I'm have the ability to take. But if your arms are here in a scarce mindset, and you're not willing to spend an extra $500 on a certain type of inspection, or you're not willing to spend extra money on this type of improvement that the house needs. Instead, you're scarce about it and you don't let it go, and then someone gets hurt down the line. Those are the scarce versus abundant mentalities. So try to drive it right back. Did your mindset at the beginning have any different from where you are today when it comes to scarcity versus abundance with your time or money?
well, I guess the biggest thing was when I first got started, I was doing most all the work myself. There was a little bit here and there that I'd hire out, or on the first house, my parents helped. So those first 4 units or so, I was working and doing most of the work myself versus hiring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, my time got more valuable, and I wanted to not completely go insane by working 100 hours a week either. So I wanted to be able to spend more time with my family and my 6 month old. And so that's been a nice shift. And I work from home now, and I on the rentals, and am able to take care of my daughter all day, every day. So
Yeah.
so that's been really cool.
Yeah, and by letting go of whether it's you were afraid to spend the money, which I don't think you were, you probably more worried about things getting done the way you wanted it to get done. And when you're able to let go of that and have an abundance mindset that they might not get done the way I need it done or want it done, but it's going to get done. And it's going to be what we call in Tiffany and my business, we say it's Gitmo. It's good enough to move on. Not that we're saying that shoddy work is good work, because it's not, but I want it at 100%. Like if we're talking about painting, right? If it needs 4 coats of paint to be perfect, I would put 4 coats of paint on it. But my contractor might put 2. It's still painted. It may not have the thickness or, the ability to, sheen, if you will. I don't know that much about paint, but it is good enough to move on. And that's something that I had to learn to develop
Yeah,
an abundance mindset.
it's hard, and we're still tweaking it every day, Eric, as you know, 8 years
Yeah.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
still trying to, we want it to be better. We want it to be better, but like you said, it's good enough to move on, and you just keep going and doing the best you can.
That's right. And without a roadmap that tells you what your dream life looks like, you will have it'll be very difficult to understand, oh, by saying yes to going and working on this property, I'm saying no to the things that are in my dream life.
Mm-hmm.
By going and, surveying this property or making sure this refrigerator got put in the right way, I'm saying no to my wife and kid.
Yep.
And if you have the inability to understand that by saying yes, you're saying no, and letting that guide your decisions, I feel like you're going to be doing a huge disservice to yourself until you adapt that mentality and understand that. So, bravo to you on being able to at least be willing to let go and developing those skills of letting go.
It's not easy, and I still need to get a lot better at it, letting go and keep outsourcing so I can have more time. I
Yeah.
still don't have enough time with my family, and I need to do better at that. So we'll just keep getting better.
And
One day at a
there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference between being responsibly abundant and then being recklessly abundant, because you can only give off so much. You can only push off so much to someone else. When it comes to the things that really make a huge difference in your daily action of, are the books balanced, or are these contractors getting paid, or these things. There are people that can absolutely fill in and do that job for you, but let go of what you're comfortable letting go. And like Dan's doing, do it a little bit at a time and slowly get to a point to where your systems are refined and you don't have to worry about it. Because you don't want to just be sitting in your dream life terrified that something in your business is going to explode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know in my dream life, there's a lot of peace that exists in my dream day. I want peace and calm. And I can't be peace and calm if I think some contractor is going to go steal something from the warehouse. I can't do that. So.
Right. Yeah.
So I know early on you were extremely involved in your business. There's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't touch a hammer, never have, never will. But and that's fine. That's good on them. That's part of who they are, and that's what they identify as. I'm different. I loved working on the houses. Dan, it sounded like you did too. So what was your mindset on the hustle mentality? You left your work during the day and you went home and probably changed real quick and went back to work on your business. And you probably had buddies and friends back at Ohio State that are like, hey man, let's grab a beer and watch the game, or let's go do this, or hey, we miss you, buddy, let's hang out. And you're like, I'm working on my business.
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There were a lot of late nights working and painting. A lot of stuff I didn't really like to do, but I didn't know any better. I didn't know who to hire. I have to get this done, or it's just going to lose me money until it's done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to make any money off this. It's just going to be sunk cost until I get it done and get a renter in there.
Yeah, that hustle mentality, like I said earlier, it may not exist in you. It may have already existed in you, and it may have existed in me, but I know that I had to hone in on it. I had to say, wow, I am beat. I would really just rather, sit back and watch Netflix or something, but I can't. This has got to get done. And by saying that and accepting the responsibility to hustle, that proposed a lot of sacrificing. You were saying you had to sacrifice a lot. Can you tell our audience a little bit about, what does it mean to sacrifice? And do you always have to sacrifice?
I guess early on, I put in a lot more hours than I do now. I still put in a decent amount of hours now, but it's a night and day difference between then and now. I was for years, even eventually we went from 32 hours for a little while back up to 55, 60 hours. So we would work 60 hours a week, and then I'd go work on the houses afterwards. And that's what I did. I worked for years, and then eventually I was able to outsource more and more, keep growing the business, and have a little more time for myself and more time to watch Netflix or other things. Spend time with my daughter and our animals, and choose to work, not have to work. So it's a big difference. So now it's more so I choose to work than needing to work.
Right. That's something not a lot of people are willing to accept, the sacrificing part of it. And if you could tell, someone exactly what you just told us, you're going to be able to say, I'm choosing to work. I don't have to work.
Right.
It's about building an understanding of what we call delayed gratification. You're going to get the things you want, but it's going to come when it's ready to come.
Mm-hmm.
And delayed gratification is not something, especially this generation, this day and age, that people are willing to have. There's an iPhone 95 coming out. Time to get it. I'm gonna get it the day it comes out. If you're in the spot to do that, awesome. With inflation, when the iPhone 95 comes out, it'll probably be $100,000. But if you're in the spot to buy it, awesome. But if you're by buying that, you're saying no to something else, I would ask you and challenge you to say, is this, keeping you from achieving what you really want? Is having this nice car, this new car, although it's neat and it's nice and it's safe. Well, you can have safe old cars too, but it's nice. It's nice to ride around in a new ride. I don't have a new car. Dan, I know you don't have a new car.
No, I don't.
But by saying no to something, you're saying yes to something else. Just it's vice versa. By saying no to this new car, that saves me $400, $500, $600 a month.
Mhm.
$400, $500, $600 a month sounds like a rental to me. Either, if I do want that new truck or car, I'll go buy a rental and I'll let it pay for my toy. But I don't need a new truck or a new car. I have accepted the delayed gratification almost too much that I don't know if I'll ever buy a new car.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there still. So even though I could, I'd rather buy houses that pay for
Yeah.
themselves over time. So
Well, maybe I challenge you this year. Go buy a house, and instead of using that money to go buy other houses, let that one house pay for this car.
yeah,
And then when it's paid off in 3-4 years, it's still yours, and then you can make the cash flow on it. It's delayed gratification within your business.
Yep.
It's just you're delaying the gratification of the cash flow. See, it all works. All right, Dan. So last question here on our just diving into you. Here at the On Purpose Investor, our mission is to get our listeners to begin living their life with hyper intentionality. To live their life on purpose, and that's why we decided to name it the On Purpose Investor. So, what would you say has helped you to live your life with intention and clarity?
well, I mean, it was just one day at a time, learning from different mentors and books and podcasts and trying to get that mindset. I did your Dream Life University class, and that was more so a mindset thing and learning to set goals and figure out your roadmap and figure out your path forward to, like you said, live your life with intention and clarity. In the beginning, I was blindly buying rentals and figuring out, okay, I'll work hard. Eventually, maybe I'll work less. And now I don't have a day job anymore. And it's been 2.5 years. I haven't had a day job anymore, and I'm only 31. So, I mean, and I didn't know what I was doing when I got started. So it's just one day at a time.
Yeah.
Figure out your path forward, keep moving in that direction, and just keep doing something to move the needle forward every single day. Just do the best you can. And eventually you'll get there. It might not be 2 years or 5 years. It might be 20 years, but 20 years is better than 50 or working until you pass away.
Or so never, right.
Or never, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get better at that and clarifying that. So to focus on what's really important for me than just working forever for somebody.
Right. And I think we all have a family member that we know and probably could name them right now and say, wow, they're X amount of years old and they're still working and they'll never stop working. I wish they could have discovered this when they were my age. Where would they be had they just done a little something, 40, 50, 60 years ago or 70 years ago? I don't know. We might have 15-year-olders listening to this episode saying, I'm going to go buy rentals this year. I know 15-year-olders that buy rentals. Then you can do it too. But yeah, think about that one person in your head that you either are related to or you just know them that, they're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old and, they're still working. Imagine where they would be if they invested younger. And if you are 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, listen, it is never too late to get started.
Absolutely.
There is no age limit when it comes to buying rental properties. There's no age limit when it comes to getting smarter about something. And if you're like, well, what's the point? I'm just going to be, I'm going to do it for a few years and I'm gone. It's like, well, you probably have someone in your life that you would like to leave that to. There's probably someone in your life that you would like to help them get started. And, that's what I tell people sometimes when I ask them to sell or carry something. They're like, why would I do a 30-year note with you if I'm 90 years old? Why would I do a 30-year note? It's like, well, I'm going to pay you, and in the unfortunate time that you pass, you're going to get to pick who gets that, and it'll go to them. And it's a nice thing when they can say, wow, I will be remembered or honored, or I will still live on even past because I can do this. It's a morbid subject and it's always a touchy subject, but when you do live your life with intention and clarity, you can absolutely change the destination of where you're headed. And I'm glad to say that I know you and that I know that you've gotten more in intention and more clarity since I've known you, and I have too. I mean, I was wild westing it back then when we first met, and we were just bang bang buying whatever, and now Tiffany and I have a lot more intention and a lot more clarity on where we're headed. And I really appreciate that you brought up Dream Life University. That is our course that we are getting ready to launch the second edition of in a little bit later, 2023. So be sure to check out our Facebook page or our website, On Purpose Investor, just to see when that material is coming out. So I really appreciate that. And you were a great member of the group. You offered a lot of insight to our other students. And I'm looking forward to having them on the podcast to hear how Dream Life may have shaped and molded them as well.
Yeah, it was a great course. I think I got a C- maybe, just barely passed, but we got through it.
Oh,
So,
you're still going to graduate. I'm still trying to figure out, like, with our Dream Life students, I really want to do something like a diploma or something, like mail it out, and like have a really big like graduation ceremony. We'll do it on Palm Beach, and you'll walk down and turn your tassel.
yeah.
It's funny that I would be the one at the front doing that because I was a horrible student. I would have never passed anything. All right. We're getting into our final five questions for Mr. Dan here today. We're going to go through these as quickly as you want to, or as detailed as you want to. But I like to ask these 5 questions to all of our guests here at the On Purpose Investor podcast. Number 1, what advice would you give to investors getting started today?
Well, that's just it. You have to get started. You have to take action. You have to keep moving forward, do something every single day, like you said earlier, with hyper intentionality to move the needle forward. Finding those mentors were key for me through the local landlord associations, through the local real estate associations. And they may not be that local. I mean, you still may have to drive. I mean, my one group I'm in was an hour and 15 minutes away. So you may have to put in some time, but you'll learn a lot from them, and you could grow with them, and eventually you may become business partners with them. But that's just a great thing that I had done. When I first started out, books are cheap or free, and podcasts are cheap or free. And there's so much good content out there to learn, and just keep moving forward, learn from those mentors, take action. You don't win a game of chess on your first move. It takes several moves to win the game, but you won't win unless you start making moves. So you got to go.
That is a profound statement there. Confucius say. I like that. I want to get your face on a poster and put that on it, because it's a really good statement. It's a really good statement. You do not win a game of chess, which is a very thoughtful game. You know, you don't win a game of chess on the first move. You got to keep making moves. You got to have a strategy. You got to make sure you're moving to whatever strategy you have. Oh, good answer. Awesome answer. So do you have any YouTube or podcast shows that you would recommend to our listeners? And if you have one, it could be your own. If you're getting started to launch one or getting ready to launch one, let us know.
No current plans at the moment, but I'll let you know for sure.
Awesome.
I've honestly really enjoyed your podcast. On Purpose Investor has been wonderful. It's even better when Tiffany's on. No offense, Aaron.
Yeah, she'll come back.
But Bigger Pockets podcasts, I mean, they got like 1 million podcasts now. So it's just, they have all kinds of content there. And then another one I listen to is The Mindset Mentor with Rob Dial. That's a good one. You can never have enough information just trying to get your mind right and in the right mood. So that's a good one to listen to. Yes. And I enjoy that one as well.
Yeah. Tiffany, she is a podcast junkie, and she really enjoys the Mindset Mentor. If you've listened to any of the On Purpose Investor going back to the first few episodes, you'll know that Tiffany and I got started by randomly getting a rental property. And then I was a bad landlord, and she said, hey, let's figure this out. And then we made it to Bigger Pockets and bought Brandon's book and became landlords and really dove in and figured it out. But back then, Bigger Pockets probably only had like 200 or 300 episodes at that point. But now they've got 5 different brands of podcast, and each one probably has 5 to 20,000 episodes. So Yeah, you're right. But it's still good content. I would recommend our listeners, if they go to Bigger Pockets, jump to the earlier stuff because there's some awesome content. The new stuff's good too. I'm not knocking them, but that old stuff, the OG BP is my favorite.
Yeah, and they have so many. I mean, you can focus and pick which ones pertain to you, and just you can do it that way if you like as well, to try and focus on the content, on your niche, and focus.
Before I jump to the next question, I just have a thought that just entered my mind. Do you feel like the real estate investing space, the educational side of it especially, has just like skyrocketed in the past like 3 to 5 years?
I don't know if it's skyrocketed or I've just realized more and more over time the amount of content that's really out there.
Yeah.
I think it definitely has grown quite a bit for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure 2008 hurt some people, and probably a lot of people backed out, and a lot of people are now back in. So there's just so much content.
That's a good point. I just felt like I would ask you. You're always full of good things to say. So if you had to pick one book that you feel made the biggest impact on your life, what book would that be?
Well, it's absolutely Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That's the one that really lit the fire in me. I mean, if Devin hadn't told me to read that book, I don't know if I'd have any rentals or what I'd be doing or where I'd be right now. But I mean, that one really got me going. It got me excited. And a month later, I had a house under contract. So that one for sure. But there's lots of good real estate books out there. Lots of good books on your mentality and just learning and trying to keep the right mindset. But that's a really good book.
Right. Yeah. And you would have never gone and bought that first property 30 days later had you never taken action. So that just relates back to the answer to your first question.
Yeah. My more recent book that really has done a lot for me was the one I mentioned earlier, the My Solo 401k book. It's a tough read, but it's awesome. And just the stuff that I'm doing now with buying a lot of rentals in my 401k and them cash flowing and not having to worry about the stock market has just been a lot of fun as well.
Right.
To move things forward. So that's another one I'd recommend.
Absolutely, man. So number 4, what do you feel has been the secret sauce to your success?
Well, like I've kind of said earlier, networking for sure. Finding those mentors. They help me meet other people. They help me meet my banker, my realtor, my contractor. Even just without those mentors and networking early on, I wouldn't even known what the next step really was, or who really should even be on my team, or what I should even look out for. But that was huge for me, and just helping me move forward and helping me successfully move forward is the biggest thing, is meeting the right people for sure. And just bouncing ideas off. We went through a house. They would tell me all the stuff that was wrong with it. I had no clue. I didn't know anything about houses when I got started. So that was great for me. Learning from the local apartment associations, like I said before, and the landlord associations, whatever it is, real estate associations, or if you have to, finding a way to start your own if there isn't one. Yeah,
absolutely. And so how would someone find like an apartment association or a real estate association to go to? How would someone find that?
Well, I mean, there's the biggest one right now is, I think, National RIA, and the RIAs are different. Some are better than others, but you can just Google National RIA or RIA, REIA, near me. You could probably try Googling a local apartment association or landlord association. It really depends on how big your community is. We're in small towns here, so it might be a little bit more difficult to find it versus in a city where they probably already definitely have some big RIAs established.
Yeah.
But you can also just go on Facebook Marketplace and see who's posting places for rent and message those landlords. That's another way to meet them and chat them up, would just be to do that.
Absolutely. Remember, when you reach out to these people, try to add value.
Because absolutely.
No one likes the random, text or Facebook message of, hey, I want to pick your brain. It's like, can we do something a little past that? Because, I like helping people, but also like tell me something good. Like, go door knocking with me, or, go find some deals. Let's do them together. I don't want to just let you pick my brain. I want to have a relationship. I want to build together.
Yeah.
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 So,
Maybe they'll partner on some deals with you.
absolutely. Yeah. I won't get into that story, but we had a young kid that joined us and helped us on our team for a little bit, and we have a great relationship now, and we're helping him, and he added a huge amount of value to us, and we're trying to push it forward and pay it forward and help him out. So there's a lot of symbiotic relationships that can come from people just reaching out to you and say, hey, I don't want to just pick your brain. I want to help you be so successful that I just am benefiting from the radiation of it. So if you're looking for, to reach out to someone like that, do that. But, that secret sauce being networking, I think not a lot of people would say, not a lot of people do say networking. I think that's hyper important because relationships matter so much.
Absolutely.
People undervalue them sometimes. They're like, I'm going to go win by myself. It's a team sport, so just understand that.
Absolutely.
All right, number 5, Dan, and the last one. I don't want people to have just fallen in love with the amazing Dan Shank and not be able to reach out to you ever again. It's like, oh, I heard that guy once on a podcast. Where did he go? All right. So how can our listeners get in touch with you or follow you and your journey?
Well, the biggest one would be just adding me on Facebook, messaging me there, or emailing me, or calling me, or texting me.
Okay, right on. We will get Dan's contact info and put it in the show notes of this episode. Just last little thing, I just want a little update from you. I know that you had almost been in a legal battle with a company about rockets and was interested to see had anything come out of that. Do you have a big payday, or has nothing changed?
Not really. Nothing's changed yet. We'll see. So.
Okay.
I had the name first, that's for sure. But
that's right. Well, if anything ever comes of that, I want you back on this show, and I want to talk all about it. And if you have questions about that story, go find Dan, find him on Facebook, reach out to him. I'm sure he'll be happy to share that story. All right, y'all. This has been great. It's been grand. I've enjoyed it. Dan, thank you so much for being here today. It was an absolute pleasure. Y'all, hit Dan up. He's a wealth of knowledge. Remember, don't just pick his brain. Offer him some help. Go up to the UP, bring a jacket, take him to lunch, and go pet his pet pig, Emma. She's great.
Yep.
All right, Dan. You take care.
I'll catch you later.
Are you ready to discover and build your dream life? Then it's time to become a Pathfinder. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tips and tricks to help you find your path and get the latest from our blog. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying this show, share it with friends, family, and fellow investors. See you next time at the On Purpose Investor Podcast.